In this session, I would like to talk about Azure Container Instances. So Azure Container Instance is a platform as a service offering from Microsoft, and it is a good service which can be utilized for a lot of different use cases, which might even include production scenarios. But having said that, it's not very correct to say that yeah, it should always be used for production workloads. But yeah, it has quite a wide range of usability, where you can use Azure Container Instances for your testing purposes or demo purposes. So for this session, I would like to talk mostly around the container instance and the deployment process and the features. Just to be give a heads up, I this session is more about the implementation, so I'll be showing a lot of demos instead of going through a lot of slides. So just a quick brief overview. I've put together a couple of slides to just make like the high level understanding of what this is. So what is the Azure Container Instance? Azure Container Instance is a great solution for any scenario that can operate in isolated containers, including sample application, task automation, and build jobs. So as I said, it's not very production only sort of thing, but yeah, it has a wide range of opportunities where you can use this, and then you can leverage the Azure Container Instances. So so there are wide different benefits if you use Azure Container Instances. So it's faster and easiest way to run a container in the cloud. You don't need to bother about the infrastructure and all that stuff. No VM management, as I said, no infrastructure headache. The billing is very specific. So per CPU memory billing, it's per second billing, and I'll talk about a little bit more for the billing side because you need to be mindful when you are provisioning this. Deployment of images, you can take the image from Docker Hub, Azure Container Registry, or any other Docker registry. It works all fine. So that's the billing model which we should understand before we jump on and start provisioning this. So it's a one-time charge what you get when you provision a container. So that's around $0.0025. Now there is a per second billing, and that's really crucial to understand because if you have provisioned this and if you have just kept it for weeks and months, then you might be charged for then you will be charged for it irrespective of whether you are utilizing it. And for an example, if you see, if I provision a single container with one CPU, 1 GB, and running for a month, it will cost you around $62.21. Now, just consider the fact that you have 100 containers, which two CPUs, 3 GB RAM, and running for 1 hour, it would be around $22.75. So better be mindful when you're provisioning this and you are even testing it. So during the load test or stuff, if you're scaling it, then better be sure that you have killed all the instances. Otherwise, you will have a big bill to pay at the end of the month. So common scenarios where you should use this, it's as I said, it's really good for POC, demo purposes, testing purposes. So if you want to do a task automation or stuff, good to provision it on the fly and then do the job, whatever you want to get things done, and then just kill it. CI/CD again, provision it, do the CI/CD, kill it. That's the best use case where you can use it for CI/CD. Small scale batch processing, as again, if you are doing like image processing or if you're doing like machine learning sort of modeling, then yeah, it's really good where you can provision hundreds and thousands of these containers, get the job done, and then just kill them. So yeah, and simple web application for testing purposes, like if you are building a container-based application or an API layer, then instead of waiting for the entire container orchestration to be ready, like if you're using AKS or Kubernetes or whatnot, you can just take your container, deploy it over here, and see what sort of experience you are getting. So what you can do today, you can run a Linux or a Windows container in Azure Container Instances. The custom CPU memory, so up to 4 CPUs you can have and 8 gigs of RAM. As I said, it's not a very production type of thing, but yeah, it has all the capabilities to run something like a demo sort of thing and POC stuff. So expose container file, so you get a public IP address as soon as you provision an ACI instance. You can mount Azure file drives for any sort of file persistent if you have that particular logic in your application. You can set environment variables from which the container will be able to get the configuration data or configuration values. And you can override the command line. You can override through command lines and stuff. You have all the command line features available as well. So in a nutshell, that's what kind of ACI is, and that's what all the presentation I have. Let's jump on and see how it looks like in a real world. So what I've done is I have created a resource group by this name. What I'll do is I'll provision it not through the portal, but I'll provision it through uh, the Azure shell, cloud shell, because I think so it's much easier if we do it that way. It's quite straightforward, nothing very complicated to do that. So before even I execute some shell commands or stuff like that, let me show you how the command looks like. So if you see this, what I've done is I've just created a sample script for just executing a container, and I'll just show you the breakdown. So AZ basically refers to Azure, container refers to ACI, and you are creating a container. So the first parameter is you provide the resource group. As I said, I've created this one for my implementation. You need to provide a ACI name. So Azure Container Instance name, for me, it's K8 Core API. You need to have an image which you need to run on the container. So as I said, this is Azure Container Instances mostly for container services. So if you have a container you want to deploy, you can use any container. For me, I'm taking a container for my Docker Hub. I have a container by the name K8 vanilla core underscore API, and this is my tag which I have added to that. So that's my image. You can provide what operating system you have built your container on. So for me, I've used .NET Core, so I've deployed it using Linux. That's the port which you can provide. So it'll run on 80 and 443 HTTPS. You can also provide your DNS custom name. So for me, I've provided Core API. That would be my custom DNS name. So when the public IP address is attached to my container, it will basically have this name attached to it. So that's in a nutshell. Now let me show you this particular image. So if I come over here, that's my Docker Hub instance, and what I have is I have an image over here. It's just for demo purposes. It's nothing much over there. It's an API when you deploy the application on IaaS, or in this case, it's a container. It's the same code base for IaaS samples also, which I have. It basically, you deploy it, you take the URL, you put /API/values, and you'll get value 1, value 2, which is the default controller which ASP.NET Core provides when you provision a ASP.NET Core API application. So having said that, we'll just go to the Azure shell, and then we'll try to run the command which I just showed you. So it's exactly the same command. I've just flatted it out because you can't run a carriage return sort of command in Cloud Shell. So what I have is the same stuff, nothing different. I'll come over here, I'll put the command, and yeah, I set it go. Now you just need to be mindful that it's really quick when you talk about a container which is running on a Linux operating system. But if you talk about Windows, I've seen it takes around like 10 minutes or more to provision a Windows container. As you know, it takes a while for the Windows to get up and running. But for Linux, it's really quick. It should be less than 2 minutes or something. Now, if I come back over here, if I refresh, it takes a while before we get the provisioning done. But yeah, uh, as far as the containers are concerned, if you are not well aware about the container system, the container is the next big thing, and I think so it's sort of a buzzword as well. Everyone is trying to deploy and build application in a form of a container, because there are large number of benefits which you will get out of it if you deploy an application as a container. So yeah, if you have a new resource which is onboarding on the project, you don't need to set up this machine or all that stuff. The container, give it the container endpoint, and then you can download the container, and you'll get all the configuration, environmental details, and everything all sorted for him. Now, as you can see, it was really quick, because I have got the container instance provisioned. If I come and refresh over here, yeah, I have the K8 Core API instance provisioned. Now let's see what we get as a return after the provisioning is done in the JSON format. So there are a lot of different attributes which we have. Let's just focus on the important ones. So what you can see over here, I have a IP address, and the DNS name is Core API. As I said, the FQDN includes my core API. So Azure Australia East.azurecontainer.io, that's the default endpoint. It aliases my particular DNS label in the FQDN. That's my public IP address. It runs on port 80. Protocol is TCP. It also has 443 and TCP. It's a public type that shows the location. That's the name of my name of the ACI which I created. It shows the Linux operating system, and yeah, it shows it's a success. Everything was all good. Let's get back and do a little bit of dissection of what this particular thing looked like. So K8, quite the normal graphs which you get on all the Azure services, nothing much fancy. What you can see over here are two important aspects. One is you get the IP address and you get the FQDN. So you can access this container from either of these ways. So you can use the IP or you can use FQDN. It also shows that it's running on a Linux platform. Now let's see the container inside. So if you see over here, it gives you a full audit trail of what all happened and everything like that. So if I come to the properties, I get all the details, ports and whatnot, the basic details we saw in the JSON as well. Logs gives you the basic log aspect, and even if you want to connect to it, you can connect it from the shell inside the browser itself. Now, if we get into the logs, we can see it started, it created the instance, pulled the image, and then it deployed the image and all that stuff. So all looks quite well. We can see we have one container at this stage. The best part is you can put a load test on this, and then it will automatically scale for you. So that's really good about this Azure Container Instances as well. Now, if I see over here, it gives me detail about what image is running on my container. It's the same image as my Docker instance. So Carnasive1 K8 Vanilla Core API, and RC1 is my tag. So if I see over here, that's the same image which is running over here. It says the state is running. Previous state, there was no previous because I just provisioned it. There is no restart which was done, and then that's the name of my ACI. Now, yeah, so let's see the truth in action. So let's copy this FQDN. And as I said, if I run this URL, and if I put /API /values, I should get a return. So yeah, as I said, the default ASP.NET controller, it basically has these values as a default get command, and then that's what it is returning back. So it's all running fine with the container available inside the ACI. You can stop the container at any point of time. You can restart just like the web app. It can do all that stuff. Apart from that, you have matrix option, and all these things are very common, as you can see in any other Azure services. So in a nutshell, what I wanted to explain with this particular session was around that ACI is a really good service which Azure has provided. You can utilize it for diverse different use cases, for demos, for testing, for load test, and all that different perspectives. So you can do all that, and then you can use it, kill it, and then pay exactly the bare minimum what you should, and then you can have all the good stuff which you want in respect to running a container in the cloud. So you don't need to bother about the infrastructure. You don't need to set up a Kubernetes cluster or a Docker container or Docker Swarm instance. So yeah, Docker Compose and all that doesn't, it's all that headache you get off. You just have your container, you run it as a standalone, and then you can test it, do whatever you want to. So yeah, that's it what I had for this particular session. But yeah, let me know